There are good reasons still to buy an OLED monitor. There are good things about them. I'm instead making this video because I got burned. I wanted to buy a new monitor, watched all the reviews on all the various different OLED monitors. I understood what was good about them. While the information was all there, the downsides and the drawbacks and the deal breakers with these monitors just hasn't been sufficiently expressed. At least having gone through this myself and now currently owning an OLED monitor that I regret, an expensive one, has led me to conclude that this technology, for all of its benefits, just isn't there yet for how I want to use monitors. And so let me go over what that process was like for me and where I hit the major roadblocks and stumbling blocks and ultimately what I ended up with and the problems that I'm dealing with right now. So when I originally started looking for an OLED monitor, I was using a basic IPS Asus 165 hertz display. I can't remember the name of it. It was 27AQ something, I forget, it doesn't matter. I was using that display and I was happy. It was 1440p and I had used a 21 by 9, 1340 by 1440, but I got rid of that one because it was huge and I found that I didn't actually use the 21 by 9 all that much. I like having that dual symmetrical setup. It just fits well with my desk and how I like to work. And because I was using a 1440p display, I was looking at other displays that were also 1440p because I don't want to have to deal with weird bullshit window scaling issues, and there are some. Plus, I'm also not using like a 5090 or anything like that, so running with a more modest 5070 Ti, 1440p is kind of the sweet spot for, high frame rate to actually be able to take advantage of some of these, crazy high refresh rate displays. And I still feel that way. I still feel that that's the way to go, even though I'm now using two 4K displays. I can't believe where I've ended up. This is ridiculous. But this was right around the time when those new tandem OLED, W-OLED displays from LG were starting to make their way into products that were hitting the market, like the Asus ROG Swift PG27AQ WP and the ROG Strix XG270AQ WMG. The latter one there is the one I was actually most interested in because it was reasonably priced. It was tandem W-OLED at 280 Hz, 1440p. These were ticking all the right boxes for me. Another option would have been the version from Gigabyte, the I can't remember, 28Q something. You know the one I'm talking about. But the problem is none of these displays were actually available in Canada, except for the ROG Swift PG27AQ WP-W, so the high-end one. And I waited. I waited and I waited and I waited. And February rolled around and I was told by multiple representatives that, these new 280 hertz tandem OLED displays would be available, and nothing. So eventually I just took the plunge. I said, to hell with it, I'm just going to get the ROG Swift. And this was based on seeing all those positive reviews. The thing is, if you were buying an Asus ROG Swift version, this tandem OLED 1440p version of the display, you had to basically run the lottery of potentially getting a panel with extreme banding issues, like the vertical lines issue that many of you guys might be familiar with, but also this ridiculous dirty screen effect. Now, I knew about these issues, the panel lottery, the banding issues, but I don't feel that it was sufficiently highlighted because, good Lord, is it ever bad? So when I bought this display and booted it up, all excited to enjoy the, ridiculous contrast, the crazy black levels and it's butter for your eyes, all that good stuff that, OLEDs are supposed to be good for, I was met with effectively staring at a pair of jeans when looking at Discord. It's ridiculous. I couldn't believe how bad it was. And of course, I went with tandem OLED because I know that the way that I use these displays is not just for gaming or media consumption. I use these displays at least partially for my everyday setup. And the problem with the alternative display technology, QD-oled, is that it has really bad color fringing when trying to look at text. Text is awful on QD-oled displays, and we'll get to that more in a moment. So I returned the 27-inch 1440p W-OLED display and learned that in order to make a purchase and minimize your lottery potential issue, you had to buy a model that was manufactured after a certain run. And you could identify which manufacturing run this was based on certain number and letter combinations for the serial number. When you walk into the store and you start explaining this, you start to feel like a crazy person who is like trying to do some sort of weird numerology bullshit. Quite frankly, after doing that research, I felt a little bit more confident about, again, rebuying that PGAQ27WP, the Asus ROG Swift one. Again, also because that was the only one that was available. And I found one that had the right serial number combination that indicated it was from a little bit later run. And booted it up, and sure enough, it has these ridiculous gray bands going on whenever you're looking at any kind of, grayscale content. I feel that is totally unacceptable. With all of these issues, I think to myself, is this just something I'm being a pedantic asshole about? Is this something where I'm over-focusing on something or hyper-fixating on it because I know that this is an issue? And if I were to just look at the display like a normal human would look at it, would I have these issues? And my answer is, yeah, it's distracting when you're just looking at Discord. It's distracting when you're just looking at, anything on your web browser if you happen to be using dark mode. And I happen to use dark mode. So I returned the ROG Swift 27-inch 1440p display, much to my sadness. Now, it might be the case that the lower-end model, the 280Hz version or the one from Gigabyte as well with the same panel, they might not have these issues. But I didn't get a chance to try those because, again, they're not available in Canada, or at least at the time I was, trying to buy one of these displays. They just weren't available. Maybe they're available now, but the supply was limited. So I did a bit more research on this and trying to figure out, okay, well, these panels clearly have problems. What if I go with a 4K version? Does that have problems? And the answer is apparently not. Apparently the 4K tandem OLED displays are fine. I haven't tested that, but that's what the claims are. So I thought, okay, I'll just make the frame rate concession, get a 4K display, and then just use DLSS for anything, right? I mean, everything has DLSS these days, and we're just doing the upscaling thing and the fake frames thing, and that's just the future of all this stuff anyways. So I thought to myself, maybe the demands of 4K on my GPU is less of an issue than I thought it was, and also the benefit of having better text rendering and text clarity in general because of higher pixel density. So I sat down to do more research to figure out what 27-inch 4K tandem OLED display I should buy. It turns out that there aren't any, at least for glossy ones. I'm not sure about matte. And that's another thing. Of course I wanted glossy panels because everybody was saying glossy panels are good. They are good. Glossy panels are better than matte panels in a dark controlled environment. And I wanted 27-inch because I liked that form factor of having two 27-inch displays for my desk. It fits with my desk space. I don't want to get something that's so huge that it's unwieldy for my situation. So, much to my continued sadness, the 27-inch tandem OLED 4K option just wasn't on the table. So, that's where I should have stopped and just been like, okay, well, this just isn't for me yet. But I thought to myself, well, what about QD-OLED at 4K? Obviously, QD-OLED has issues with text fringing at 1440p. And I didn't want to have to deal with that problem because, again, I use these displays at least partially for things that involve text. And sure enough, there were many recommendations for 4K QD-OLED displays, specifically citing that at this pixel density, the text fringing is not an issue, especially with the 27-inch high pixel density options that I ended up going for. Oh my God, is it ever a problem? Do not believe people when they say that the 27-inch 4K QD-OLED displays don't have text fringing, because absolutely 100% they do. But of course, I didn't know that yet. So I bought the XG27UC DMG from Asus, which is a 27-inch 4K QD-OLED display at 240 Hz. Actually had the person open it up in the store to see if there were going to be any, issues to do with panel uniformity, because at this point I was like, I'm just so tired of this. And we looked at the panel uniformity and ran the tests in the store, and it was actually great. Like, this panel has near flawless uniformity, no issues there whatsoever. But we didn't check the text fringing, and we should have. And actually, I think there might be an explanation for why some review outlets have said that these displays have minimized or solved the text fringing issue. And that could be because they're using them in light mode, where this issue of text fringing is not as bad as if you're looking at white text on a dark background. So if you're using dark mode, the text fringing issue becomes way worse. And to me, it's infuriating. It's terrible. And for anybody who's wondering what this is, it looks like there's a pink fringe or like reddish kind of fringe at the bottom of text and green fringe at the top. There's technically more fringing going on throughout, the sides as well, but these are the most notable areas. It almost looks like halos around the text, making text seem kind of fuzzy or blurry, or almost a little bit like you're looking at the way that the TikTok logo functions, where there's a little bit of fringing going on there. Not that I use TikTok, but that's just the thing that comes to mind. I don't know. But the information that I was seeing about this was that these displays effectively minimize this issue, and if you're seeing it, if you're suffering from the fringing issue, you are the problem. But also that there are several different ways that you can try and get around this issue. The main one being MacType. Now, MacType also doesn't actually work at dealing with this problem. This is an inherent problem to the subpixel layout of the display. MacType just lets you implement grayscale for your text effectively, and this just makes the text look kind of blocky, and it's not actually that universally applicable to the various different apps that you use, to the point where I don't feel that MacType is really a usable solution. And to try and get it to work with Chrome, for example, is a major pain in the ass. So this wasn't really an ideal solution. Neither was Better ClearType. Neither one of them were effective at actually dealing with this issue to the point where I wouldn't be distracted by the color fringing, which made it basically unusable for text. And I know that sounds like hyperbole, especially in the face of every other, person saying, oh yeah, no, it's not a big deal. No, it's a big deal. Unless I'm one of the few people who notices this or sees this, and people have the kind of vision that compensates for this, by default, and I don't, or I'm more sensitive to this issue than other folks are, which probably is the case. But personally, it's incredibly frustrating to deal with. And I feel that while people did mention the fringing issues to do with the QD-OLED displays, it's not the thing that is as disqualifying as I think it should be for them. There are amazing benefits to the contrast levels that you get for these displays. Like all the things that people talk about with OLEDs, about how amazing they are for response times and the contrast ratios and the deep blacks that you get. Yeah, it's fantastic. But as of right now, for anybody who wants to use a display even 25% of the time for text, I have a hard time really saying that the current crop of QD-OLED displays are worth getting. Yes, obviously you're saying, why the hell would I use an OLED for text? That doesn't make sense. Yeah, but I'm a real human being who uses these displays for multiple things, okay? If you were considering buying an OLED, here's what I would do. I would wait. I would wait because there are some very promising OLEDs coming out. The monitor I'm most interested in right now is the Asus ROG Swift PG27UC-WM, which is a tandem OLED, W-OLED, that's 27 inches at 4K, and hopefully it avoids the banding issues and the dirty screen effect. It's likely to be some time before this is actually, like, the production units are actually available in Canada. While there is some information about this monitor online, we don't know how the production units actually are for this. As of filming this right now, I'm not currently aware of any specific 27-inch 4K QD-OLED displays based on the non-unconventional subpixel layout that the current generation has to fix the text fringing, but I assume that they are in development or that they'll be coming out soon, because that's a clear advantage that LG has over Samsung's displays. So in my non-expert opinion, if you do plan to use these displays for any kind of mixed usage environment, it's worth waiting for these new ones to become available, to actually be in stock, and to check if they have any of these issues that folks have been reporting. Hopefully there will be some 1440p displays that make use of these new panel technologies as well, because again, I feel that's where the sweet spot is to take advantage of these high refresh rates that these displays come with. And this is the last point on this, and why I feel like buying OLEDs in 2026 is kind of insane. Even though there's promising good new implementations of OLEDs for both QD-OLED and tandem OLED coming soon, where it fixes some of the issues that I'm talking about in this video, there's still the problem of availability and this stuff taking a while to actually be in stock. I know the technology itself can be very exciting and very promising and interesting. I will be excited again, and maybe I will replace this monitor that I currently have that I regret once the next generation of OLED monitors is actually available to purchase. Until then, I just get to be sad. Okay, that is all I have to say about this topic for now. I'll probably do another video where I go over my fix for the color fringing issue, because I did actually manage to fix it, but it's a fix that has some cost to it. So I'll talk about that some other time. For now, have yourselves a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.